St. Louis Acura is excited to announce the opening of our newly remodeled service lounge. We sell pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models and take pride in servicing what we sell. We offer free pickup and delivery service and a complimentary car wash and vacuum with every service. We also have a full-service reconditioning shop on site that can repair dents, bumpers, and wheels. As the nation's only 29-time Acura Precision Team winner for customer satisfaction, we work every day to make St. Louis Acura better than ever for you.
Hey, welcome back into Weekend Joe, driven by Mung and Ass St. Louis Acura, right here on ClaibsOnline.com as we head over to our next guest right now. And if you've been paying attention, you've seen his name all over baseball, doing so much. But primarily, he is the diversity consultant with the Cardinals. He is the former St. Louis Cardinal, Xavier Scruggs. Xavier, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. Appreciate the opportunity and the platform.
You know what? You have so many different platforms that you are that you're on right now. As you just started the podcast with MLB and the as I said, the work that you were doing with the Cardinals. But I ran into you at the All-Star game because everything that you've been doing, they looked at you and they said, "We need you as the MC for one of our events here as well." So, what was that? The celebrity softball game, right? So you didn't get to play in it, but you had to talk about all the guys playing in it.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I got the opportunity to be the MC, but even, it all planned to work out to where I would be the MC, but I actually got an opportunity from the Cardinals to be their draft representative. So I couldn't be the MC for very long. The draft was coincided right with the celebrity softball game, and the futures game went a little bit too long to where the celebrity softball game ran into the draft. So I had to run from the softball event all the way to the draft as quick as possible, change outfits, put the suit on, and put my red suit on representing the Cardinals, and then head over to the draft. So that was an amazing experience to be a part of as well.
Those weren't close either, because I know I was meeting Ben Boyd from Camo X. He was there with me, and we were kind of running around doing stuff together, and I didn't go to the draft, but he did. But I tried to go meet him down there, and I took one of the scooters that was all around Denver. That's how I got from point A to point B there. And it took me forever to find where the draft was. But, yeah, it wasn't that close to Coors.
No, it wasn't. The good thing is, like, me and my team that kind of was there to help me mapped out everything beforehand. So we knew how long it was going to take, how much time I had to necessarily get dressed in the car and be able to roll out and still be there on time. So everything worked out perfectly.
Now, going back to your playing days, I mean, that's kind of like when you get the call up and you're down in Memphis and you gotta pack everything, throw it in the car, and drive those 4 hours to St. Louis. You got to map it all out and get there by game time, right?
Yeah, but in my case, I got called up while we were in Omaha at the time. So we actually flew out. We were in the playoffs. Memphis was in the playoffs, and it was after our first playoff game. They called me in and said that I was going to St. Louis and flew out and had a game the next day. But I was so nervous being a rookie. I was like, I need to get to the field as soon as possible. I think the game was at 7. I got there at like 12 p.m. I was like, you know what? There's no way I'm missing my major league debut because I'm going to take a little extra sleep for a nap or something like that. So I was so anxious. I got there super early.
It's funny how that, I mean, you're an adult by that time, you're in your 20s when that happens. And it kind of reminds, of like you see like the kid in Little League that wakes up at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning of his first game, and he puts on his uniform and he's ready to go. I mean, that's the beauty of baseball, where when you see players like that never lose that love for it, it really does. It makes you just look back at everything and all the work that it took leading up to that. And I don't think that's something you get in really any other of the major sports.
No, I think that's what's so special. It all stems from a foundation when you're a kid, man, and you never lose that. It's something that they got the Little League World Series going on right now on ESPN and stuff, and it just brings back so many of those memories of, going back and playing catch with my dad, getting ground balls at a time when, I didn't really know what I was doing. You just doing it for fun, just enjoying it because you get to be out there with your boys, get to be out there enjoying time with your loved ones and whatnot. Or you get to go to the concession stand and, you get some extra snacks, whatever it may be. But then it gets to a point to where you don't lose that, right? That's what that passion, that's where that fun comes from. And I think you still see it come out of a lot of guys' personalities today in the game. And namely, a couple of guys have been doing it for a long time. Adam Wainwright and Yadi Molina, like those are the definition of guys going out there enjoying the game and doing it for such a long period of time.
We're recording this Thursday morning, so it's right after Wainwright throws the 88 pitch complete game. He is 39 years old, and he is out there going 88 pitches, complete game with the same catcher that he's been doing it with his whole career too. I don't know which one of those is more amazing, but the fact that they're both that he's doing them both together and those two are still together is it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think the thing that's most impressive for me is the longevity and the consistency of it, right? It's got to be, there's not many guys that do it for that long and still have that much success. And I feel like that's got to be a testament to a lot of different things, nutrition, making sure your body stays intact and doing all the right things physically, but also mentally. This game, we know how much this game can beat up on you at times, and having the faith in yourself, betting on yourself a lot of those times. So I feel like those are the things that we see when we talk about Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina. And then just being a part of an organization that's so special, an organization that embraces those types of players. I think that they got lucky in that sense to be with an organization like St. Louis and to continue to choose to be with St. Louis.
I want to take you back to what we were talking about, being the kid, growing up like that. You just went through the draft. You just saw all these kids either out of high school or college get drafted, and they're about to start their major league journey. And I feel like we are, if we're not already there yet, we're on the cusp of these players who have been playing with these select teams, these travel teams, these year-round teams. And you talk about it when you were growing up, when you were a kid, and you said your dad was hitting you ground balls. And I mean, it wasn't like baseball wasn't like that back then. It wasn't like that 20 years ago. And I mean, I have an 8-year-old right now, and I'm already seeing 9 under travel teams. And I think that's ridiculous at that age to put in that type of commitment at that, so young when there's so much else they could be doing. What are your thoughts when you see the way that baseball is being developed at such a young age?
Yeah, a lot of times, it frustrates me. It disappoints me because not because one reason is because I want the kids to be able to experience other things, be able to experience other sports, other interests that they're into, because a lot of these kids, for the most part, won't end up playing in college. They won't end up playing in the major leagues or at any professional level. So to be able to groom a lot of these kids to where they believe that this is the only thing that they can do, or at least they need to be focused on this year round, I think that that's not the right thing to do. So it disappoints me a lot of times, but then also disappoints me because I feel like it's what maybe the parents or the loved one or the guardian wants the kid to do, right? And I feel like that's not necessarily how it should be. I think it should be, hey, what does the kid want to do? And introduce that kid to multiple different interests, multiple different things, so you find out what they can do best, or you can find out, how they like to separate themselves when it comes to doing multiple different things. I think one thing we see today is like we have so many athletes that can do multiple different things. And I'm not just talking about sports. I'm talking about they have lives outside of their sport. They're educated on doing other things. And that's what I love to see, because that's how you impact the world around you. That's how you impact your community, not just being so focused on one thing that you do well. It's about doing multiple things well. And that's what I love to see from the youth all the way to being an adult, So I think those things are important to me. And I want to be able to see kids do multiple things, because that's also what, when I talk to a lot of professional players, and not just baseball, but basketball, football, guys played multiple sports coming up. A lot of guys did. And I think that helped build athleticism mental toughness, all those things come into the equation when you talk about playing multiple sports.
Yeah, that's I've talking with athletes too. I mean, anybody, the top athletes of any sport, you ask them all throughout high school, they were playing multiple sports, and yeah, you do get those rare guys that were baseball players throughout their whole lives, but for the most part, you just don't want to get burned out on that one thing. Just have as much fun as possible, and then figure it out along the way, right?
Yeah, I think you mentioned an important word, fun, right? These kids are young; they're supposed to be having fun. I think a lot of times we take that out of the equation because we're expecting them to be groomed a certain way, but that's taking away their childhood, it's taking away their youth. Allow them to do what they do best, and that is have fun.
And you just started back in June the podcast, The Bigs, over on the MLB for Major League Baseball, so that you could find it on any of the podcast sites. Just search The Bigs. And you're talking to players throughout all of Major League Baseball. And I think if people go and they look at the podcast page, they're going to notice there's a little bit of a St. Louis Cardinal flavor on that on your first few episodes that you've put out for there. So Cardinal fans should really enjoy some of the stuff you have there. And what are some of the type of things that you're talking about with these ball players?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, a lot of it is St. Louis flavor to it, because a lot of the guys that I wanted to start the conversations with were the ones that I came up with, or guys that I had a good relationship with in the organization. So I felt that was important for me. And, when you're talking about having a podcast, you're talking about diving into some deeper conversation. And that was what it was about for me. I felt like there were so many podcasts I was seeing, especially in sports, which were kind of almost joking around and you're having fun for 30 to 45 minutes on the podcast. But for me, I wanted people to take away something, and that doesn't go against that's nothing against some of those podcasts that are, really comical and whatnot, but I wanted something to be taken away from every single episode. So I really wanted to dive deeper into some things that we don't necessarily hear about all the times in sports. Sometimes what's that dynamic like in the clubhouse? What's it like coming for Albert Pujols to be a young kid from the Dominican and all the struggles that he went through to come up out of there and get himself over here and to be now a Hall of Fame player. Guys like Jack Flaherty and what they went through with social injustice in 2020, how those things affected him on and off the field. Not necessarily saying anybody has to be an advocate, but what are some of those things that you went through? Colton Wong, what was it like having to go through, getting picked off in one of the games of the World Series to end the World Series? What was that battle like mentally and physically going forward? So I think a lot of those things and those discussions stem from some issues that or stem from some things that I wanted to learn about those players, but then also how they relate to normal people. A lot of people go through certain struggles and obstacles, and I always want to know, what are those things that got you over that? How did you end up excelling? How did you end up succeeding? And that was a lot of the things I wanted people to resonate with when they listen to the Bigs podcast.
And and you see these guys in Major League Baseball at the height of the pinnacle of baseball, and I think a lot of people just think they had the easiest road there, that they were just God-given talent. But you mentioned it. I know Jack Flaherty talked about almost quitting back in high school, and some of the other stories that happened along the way that almost didn't lead to the careers that they have now. And those are the little things that people hear and then kind of realize, okay, they're just like me.
Yeah. And that was a point for me to bring those things out, because a lot of times for athletes too, is like we put up this wall and we almost feel like we have to be perfect with everything. We almost feel like we have to separate ourselves from showing a lot of that stuff to fans, to supporters of baseball. But I wanted those things to be brought out to light. I wanted those things to have a platform. I wanted those things to be, I wanted those guys to give the voice of what it's like to go through things like that, so people know it's not all roses, so people know it's a struggle at times, and that people can relate with that. And I felt like that those things were extremely important. But then also to give players a voice, and and a platform to where they can express certain things as well that they don't always get to express. One of the things for me was Tommy Pham. I sat down with Tommy Pham, and he talked about how he studied the analytics of the game. Like, he really studied it to a T, to where he could understand how he could bring value to a team and how could he bring value to the game. And I felt like that was something that you don't hear a lot of times from players. Like, you don't understand how important the analytics are in the game unless you really hear it from a player and how it's benefited them. So I thought that was another conversation that was extremely important to hear. I wanted to give people conversations that you're not going to hear everybody talking about.
One of the guys I would imagine might be on your list with all the Cardinals is a guy like Paul DeYoung, who just studies that like it's, the SATs when it comes to the analytics and the sabermetrics. He is truly a student of the game, and I know that conversations with him, it's kind of mind blowing the way that he sees the way that the game is played, or kind of sees his stats.
Yeah, definitely. He's somebody that has a great understanding of, what those statistics look like, and then not just what they look like, but how to apply them to his game. And I think those are the things you learn as a young player more and more as you begin to mature. How can I make myself better? And a lot of times it's not just physical. A lot of times it's more mental. Hey, maybe I'm doing this with 2 strikes. What can I do to change my mentality? My numbers are down here in a 1-0 count. What can I do to change that mentality, or to be able to pull the trigger a little bit more, to hit more line drives, whatever it may be? You start to figure out how to benefit yourself by getting yourself better when it comes to those numbers.
For people that don't know, Xavier Scruggs is the diversity, equality, and inclusion consultant with the St. Louis Cardinals. And you mentioned Jack Flaherty and some of the stuff he's gone through. And if you follow Jack Flaherty on social media, you know how much of an advocate he is for all this, how outspoken he is for all of this. So with him being a star in the game, a rising star in the game, how important is it to have somebody of his level of talent also want to talk about some of the issues that are going on in the real world, along with that, not being afraid to back down from that?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for me is, my job being the diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant for the Cardinals. It has nothing to do with advocacy, but it does have an ability. I have an ability to be a voice and allow guys to understand their voice, and how it will be received positively and negatively. So a lot of it is about educating the players to understand what happens when you use the platform of social media, what happens when you use the platform of going out into the community and speaking how you feel. So I don't encourage necessarily anybody to be an advocate, but I do want those players to understand what happens when you become one. And I think that's what's so, great about what Jack has done, is he's starting to mature more as a player, but then also as a person, and understanding what he can say or what he or shouldn't say, and what represents the Cardinals the right way and what represents his own brand. So I think the education part of that is most important for me, and then allowing other players to see that, right? And not allowing other players to feel like that's okay. It's okay to be wrong sometimes. It's okay to have an opinion that other people don't like sometimes. So I think it's okay to have argument, disagreement. So I think that's what I'm most impressed about is how Jack has started to take all of this, and how he's made it a priority for himself. He's made it a priority for himself to educate himself and continue to not be strayed by other people's opinions, and to be able to go and be a leader in his community. I think that's one of the biggest things for me. And that's what I encourage players to do, is be a leader in the community. Don't just say you're going to do something and not have action behind it, because that's what people hate the most. Is people do not like when you say you're about something and you talk about it and you don't do it, because talk is cheap. So I want players to understand one of the biggest things that you can do to really learn your environment, learn what's going on current event wise, learn St. Louis, is diving into the community and giving back and being able to do those certain things.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that. So we have the diversity consultant, you got the Bigs podcast, you're doing stuff on MLB Network. What else are you doing these days? Where else can people see Xavier Scruggs?
No, people can see me on ESPN. I'm doing some commentating as well, broadcast work for ESPN, which has been a lot of fun. Just did the Braves Cardinals game last week, one of the games last week, which was extremely fun. Being able to talk about a lot of my old teammates and a lot of those old relationships and a lot of the relationships that I still have. So it's been fun. So definitely ESPN, MLB.com, the Bigs podcast has been a lot of fun. So I think, and then also MLB Network Radio. So for me, I love just talking about the game and being able to bring up the things that I thought of while I was on the field and some of those things that, I was taught to think about, and I think from having experience of playing for such a long period of time and playing in the Dominican, playing in Colombia, playing in Korea, playing in Mexico, playing in all these different places, and then being a minor leaguer for 7 years before I even got to the big leagues, I have a different perspective on things than most people realize. And a lot of times you get guys that are top prospects that make it into the league in a couple of years. Like, no, I didn't have that. I had a long grind. I had only a couple of years in the big leagues, and then I was able to go play some other places that give me a different perspective on things. And I love being able to bring that to the table. And I think that's a lot of what people relate to is, a lot of people don't necessarily relate to being the top in their industry, right? And being shot right to the top seat, in their profession. I think a lot of people relate to that slow grind and what it takes, and then having that perspective of different cultures and different backgrounds. Like, I love being able to bring that to the table.
Well, keep doing the work that you're doing right now, and you're going to be shooting to the top here with ESPN and MLB in no time, Xavier. It's awesome to talk with you, and awesome to see everything that you're up to these days.
Hey, thanks a lot, Joe. I appreciate you, and keep doing what you guys are doing. You guys have an awesome platform as well, and love listening to you guys and learning everything you got going on.
Thank you, Xavier.